Welcome to the final part of my hard tutorial for God Hand. And yeah, there was something I forgot to mention in the previous video about the Sensei boss fight. And I write about it in the description about using Shaolin Blast when all his clones are out and lining it up perfectly and you can kill him in one hit. I was unable to show that because I lost the footage years ago. So yeah, for this part, you're going to have some very hard fights. So, I'll try to break that down. A lot of times what's going to make this a lot easier is two tricks that I use. One is this Shaolin Blast. What I do here is I use the slow motion of the roulette mode, which you can cancel out of at any time if you don't want to use a roulette. But you can use it to slow everything down and line shit up. So what I do is I line all these enemies up in a row, and I use the Shaolin Blast. Now this takes out most nearly all the enemies in this area, in this initial wave. See, so now that's a lot of combat that you just avoided. So what you're going to want to try to do is, if you don't have the Shaolin Blast initially, you may die a lot to farm and try to get good item drops out of the barrels because it's random and changes each time. So you can just run around and break all the crates and hope that you get some good drops. Make things a lot easier. But that's a very good technique you can use on this level to clear out huge waves of enemies. And as I said, it's also extremely effective on that Sensei boss because you can just, or Sensei, you can wait till all his clones come out and just line it so that they're all in a kind of a narrow width, so they're not too far spread out. And then use the Shaolin Blast or whatever, and it'll kill them in one hit. So I didn't explain that in the last video because I forgot that I had lost that footage years ago. Of course, it does require that you have at least 3 roulette orbs. So you do need to have 3 roulette orbs for that boss to be able to do that. But there's probably a lot of item pickups in the arena. So it's probably not too hard to get 3 if you die enough. So yeah, you got plenty of room here to run around and lure guys out, throw boxes at them, and see what kind of pickups you can get, throw the weapons at them. You'll do a lot of damage with that. And if you use that blast move, you're not going to have too much of a problem. You're not going to have that many enemies to deal with in this first area. Now, a little bit later in the boss rush area where it's all bosses towards the end, you do get saves between bosses, but you may be replaying some of the bosses to get better item drops for the next area if you're having trouble on a boss that comes after the one you just beat. You may want to replay certain bosses. So I recommend definitely making multiple save slots towards this end part of the game, just to make sure if you want to redo an area to get better items. Because otherwise you can get in a tough spot where it's going to be a lot harder to deal with certain things. Especially the semi-final boss. Without a lot of roulette orbs, it can be a very long and tedious fight. So, I recommend getting to him with 4 roulette orbs. At least have a full roulette if you can. So that gets rid of the first area. And I think this is the last area before you go to the boss rush. And this is a very tough area. And I got a demon that came out at the very end. I don't know if he always comes out at the end, if it's scripted or if it's a random thing, because some demons are randomized. But I'm thinking it's probably meant as kind of a boss to this area to finish it off. So yeah, as usual, break all the boxes, throw shit at the guys if you want to damage them. It's good to see what you have available to work with. If you do have 3 roulette orbs, you can do another Shaolin Blast. And for that Shaolin Blast, you may need to farm a lot of money and buy it in the shop near the end of Stage 7. I think it might become available. I don't remember exactly how I got it at the time. But look out for that. And if you need to get all the money you need to buy it, because it's completely worth it. It makes things a lot easier on these blast areas. It's worth getting just to deal with that, just to kill that Sensei boss or whatever, because he's super fucking annoying. He has tons of clones and they rush you. It's a very irritating fight, and you can take care of it very easily if you have that move. So yeah, just run around, see what kind of item pickups you can get. You can decide how you want to budget your shit for the next area, but I don't recommend being that conservative for this area because there's more item pickups that you can farm. You can basically commit suicide and keep picking up shit to try to get better drops. You know, it may take a little while, but you can do that too if you need to. I end up using Kung Fu Tango as my single roulette orb attack that I use on some single enemies because it hits the other enemies, and I think it's pretty powerful for a single orb attack, but I don't remember. I probably had a reason why I chose that one over other single orb attacks. Of course, if you look in your menus, you can see exactly how powerful each roulette attack is, and if it targets multiple enemies or one enemy. So it's worth checking through those and seeing what you like. I also like this move where you fall back and launch enemies, but I forgot what it's called. But I've been using that for the last few stages at this point, and I like it a lot because you can launch enemies back, but especially useful to launch the heavier enemies back because you can't use hand plant kick and launcher combo on the heavier guys. It doesn't work. And if you don't know, the hand plant kick launch combo is when you use hand plant kick and hit triangle immediately to launch the enemy. You can only use that on small enemies. But see, that fallback move launches large enemies back. And the great thing about that is it gets them off your ass because, it's hard to deal with that many enemies at once, obviously. I'm mixing up hand plant kicks and that drunken fallback type of move. And I find that very effective at dealing with crowds of those large, difficult enemies. Of course, if you can isolate just one enemy and kill the rest, you can always farm the remaining enemy for God Hand by using hand plant kicks and just spamming hand plant kicks. And then doing a yes ma'am kablam move to extract God Hand when they're dizzy instead of... Well, you can still take advantage of the stun animation like when you hit circle and mash it, but you can get 2 yes ma'am kablam extractions to get your God Hand up, which you're going to want to bring into different areas. I mean, for this, I like using it on the demon that appears at the end. I like saving my God Hand until the end and using it on the demon. But see, now I can farm this guy and just do hand plant kicks, which is a pretty safe way to fight when you have a single enemy most of the time. It's a very powerful, not powerful, very effective move because it always dodges high attacks. And then you can extract some God Hand meter, and now you can finish him off. It's good to get a full meter if you can, always. You should also have all your upgrades as far as your maximum health and all that shit, God Hand meter. And the 4 roulette orb slots. If you don't have that, you should have purchased it, in the shop areas and farmed up some money on the casinos. So yeah, this God Hand, basically 2 uses, finishes off this demon, so there's no real fight. I think these ones are easier than the other faster demons that usually appear, but they do take a lot of hits. I usually try to save God Hands for demon encounters whenever I can in this game as a general rule. And bosses, of course. So yeah, you're not going to be able to bring this spear anywhere, so you don't have to carry that around. But you may want to grab whatever items. If you can get some more roulette orbs, it's going to be very useful, so just grab what you can get. I was just double checking because, this game is very difficult, so it's good to have as many items as you can get, so I usually double check. Make sure I got everything. So yeah, there's a treasure chest on the left side around that door. I don't know if it always has the same thing, but here I got a good pickup of 2 roulette orbs. So that makes a big difference. I don't think there's anything on this side except there's some pots actually. So yeah, you can try to get a good drop out of the pots. Don't bother with the fairy though, because you don't need to do any more challenges at this point. They're never really good anyway for money. As the casino is the best way. With the dog races, I like doing the best saving and loading. So yeah, now you have a save, which means you may be able to commit suicide again and again until you get the drops that you want for the bosses. Because you get a save between each one of these bosses in this level. So that is something to consider. You know, you can commit suicide, try to get better drops, obviously. I don't think the drops are fixed here. Usually they're random, but it's been a long fucking time. My strategies on the very final boss are a little rusty too, because like I said, I haven't fought him in probably like 2 years or more. So it's not going to be fresh. So yeah, in this part we're just fighting what seems to be a much more aggressive version of the gorilla in one of the early stages. It's pretty much the same fight, but he's just very fast and aggressive. But it's a very easy fight. You may not even want to use your chain yankers and all your roulette orbs and shit, but if you do, it's very easy using the chain yankers and, you know, extracting God Hand yet again, as we've been usually doing. It's a very simple fight for this game. Just make sure to backflip in time to dodge those crushes that he does. Yeah, it might be kind of fun to go back to this save again and do a New Game Plus run on hard with all the powerful moves. Just for the fuck of it, just to have a little fun. I think the Shaolin Blast can wipe out all those midgets in one shot if you line them up perfectly. So there would be some interesting things that you could do. So yeah, this is a very easy fight. I really did not need to use a chain yanker to finish him off. I don't know why I did that, but you know, hey, why not? Fuck it. Just waste everything. Who cares, right? I mean, it's not a hard game. I don't need all that shit. So yeah, now since this is edited, I edited deaths out in this tutorial. You know, it's possible that at times I redid boss fights or committed suicide multiple times to get better item drops. Or maybe, in this sense, maybe I reloaded the save or something, but it is possible that I did that to try to get better stuff for some of these fights, and that's not going to be shown, so keep that in mind if you're not getting good item drops. I didn't get a great item drop there, but it's something. This part can be tough. That's why you may have wanted to save some stuff on the gorilla fight, because this part can be tough with these 3 fat guys that are really fast. But once you get it down to 1 fat guy, I'm going to recommend farming the last fat guy for God Hand meter, because you're going to want to use it on the pimp. And you can take the pimp out almost immediately with a full God Hand, so you're going to make things much easier if you get that God Hand full for this next fight coming up. So yeah, what I'm going to be doing here is mostly hand plant kicks because they're very good at dodging attacks. And I'm also going to be using that fallback move that launches enemies, because it does good damage when it does a full launch. It has to hit at a certain time frame to launch the guy, but it does it often enough, and it's great when it does. Because it pushes the fat guys back so they can't all group me as easily. So yeah, use your God Hand to take out at least 2 of these fat guys. Because you only need to have 1 fat guy left, which is the main boss fat guy, I believe. But you only need to have 1 of them left. I think he always has to be the last one left, because he has the most health, and if you beat him... Well, maybe not. You may have to destroy all the fat guys no matter what. So, yeah, just leave one of them. And now what you're going to do is just keep doing hand plant kicks. You pretty much want to do hand plant kicks only at this point. Because what we're trying to do here is farm this guy for God Hand, which is going to be extremely worthwhile. So if you do it enough times, he will go into a stun state. And then you can do these 2 extractions like we've been doing on all the bosses. I really probably didn't even need to take advantage of that other thing. But he had enough health to where I could take advantage of the stun animation and beat him up a little bit with it. But it would have been better to fill up my God meter bar first just to make sure. Because if he runs out of health, obviously you can't farm him anymore. It's a little tedious, but it's very easy to do, and it's going to be worth it because the next fight can be very hard if you don't go in with a full God Hand meter. Especially if you don't have any roulettes. So yeah, I have a decent meter here, so that's going to pay off in a big way on the next fight. Which what I'm going to do is I'm going to target the pimp and ignore the whip bitches. Go straight for the pimp and just take the pimp out first. Now I can't tell you exactly why I kill the pimp first because, like I said, it's been 2 years. I think the pimp is extremely annoying to deal with when the whip women are moving around. So I think that's why I prioritized him first. There's usually almost always a reason when I prioritize certain enemies first in combat scenarios. You know, even though I don't remember exactly why, it's usually the result of many deaths. You know, and there was usually a reason why I went through certain enemies first. So when watching the video, always keep that in mind, even if I don't mention it. So yeah, here I'm going to use the God Hand meter and just take the pimp out immediately. And you know, a full God Hand meter will basically wreck them. So if you can, try to line the camera up a little bit so that you punch the whip bitches too, because they're very hard to deal with as well. So if you can get extra damage on them, go for it. But if you have a full God Hand meter, then you're going to be able to use like 2 God Hand uses and take him out basically. Then you can deal with these women afterwards. Here I use an area of effect attack with the Typhoon Kick. It's always safe, I think, to use 1 roulette orb if you have 1, because when you die on a checkpoint, you always start with 1 roulette orb, I believe. So it's never really a waste if you want to use 1 of them. Though, yeah, no, it can be a waste, though, because, you know, if you had 2 of them, you could bring it to the next area, and it would, so yeah, maybe it can be a waste, I guess, to use it. I shouldn't say that. It would be better to have more roulette orbs for the next areas. Actually, after this, I noticed that I had 4 full roulette orbs for the boss fight. I'm thinking what probably happened was I probably went back and beat some of these bosses again without using items. And then, you know, roulettes. And then I probably just brought that into the Agnes fight, the semi-final boss. I'm guessing that's what I did to get the full roulette orbs. I think I remember having to do that. So that is something to consider. You know, you may want to be more conservative and redo these fights. That's why I recommend saving after each one of these boss fights, as I said. Make sure you make a save slot after each one. Because you may want to go back a few encounters and be more conservative. Try to do better without wasting shit. It's going to be down to personal preference how well you can fight the boss without using, you know, chain yankers and shit. And what kind of item drops you get on the Agnes fight. Because if you get really good item drops, you won't need to go in there with 4 orbs. But, you know, it may be worth it because certain item drops are very rare and you'll be dying a lot before you get good item drops. It's a lot of luck. You'll get them eventually, most likely. But, you know, you maybe have to die a lot of times. This actually concludes that stage, but there's not really a stage after this. It's just 2 boss fights. Maybe it's technically stage 9, but, you know, I always thought of it as just 2 bosses. So yeah, this boss is not hard if you get in here with full roulettes and God Hand. Somehow I got that shit for this fight. And like I said, I don't remember how I farmed it up. It would have been useful to have that information, obviously, but I beat this 2 years ago, so I don't remember everything. But yeah, ideally, you'd want to use your God Hand and your chain yankers on this guy and just wear him out that way. If you don't have chain yankers available and roulettes and all that shit, your second option, if you're not going to go back and get better stuff and come in, is to just throw all these vases at him and hope for good item drops. And the other option, of course, is to just, if you want to play it safe, try to fight him with mainly just hand plant kicks. And, try to fight him that way and build your God Hand meter that way. It is very tedious, but they are a very reliable way to hit him and not get hit. So you can spam them. But it's really a lot better to come in here with good items. The final boss can be very difficult, and the hardest part for me with the final boss is that he has a shitload of health bars, and it takes very long. But what I did end up doing was using a rapid fire controller for that boss only because my forearms would go completely numb and I couldn't even mash the buttons anymore. Because of, I kept dying on it so many times and it's such a long fight. So in order for me to get another attempt on him, I'd have to wait for my forearms to fucking calm down. Eventually I would just be worn out. It's very button mashy, but there's also a lot of dodging and skill involved. It's just you have to mash the shit out of the button. So I recommend using a rapid fire controller for your punch button, your square combos. And of course having a very simple combo like just regular jabs basically, because any kind of attacks that you have in your combo that take long to wind up are not going to be effective on a lot of these kind of fights. So I would recommend using a rapid fire control, but most people are probably not going to have them available. You can, if you're playing on emulation like I am, you have access to all kinds of different controllers. I actually ended up using my old controller from God of War 2 on Titan mode, as I mentioned. And that's the controller I used to beat Titan mode. And that controller has really shitty analog sticks, very loose. It's a third-party controller, but the rapid fire was just so useful, even in God of War 2 on Titan, because there was all these button mashing sequences where you had to mash the button to open a fucking gate. And since I died on the bosses so many times, I had to redo those sequences so many times. And my arms were going numb back then, too. So, and this is even worse because you're mashing the entire final boss fight. So, it would be recommended, but you can beat it just by mashing the button. It's not any harder to do it when mashing the button. It's just more fatiguing to do it that way. But skill-wise, it's the same shit. It doesn't really make it easier as far as skill. The controller was actually worse, so it may have made it a little harder. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Towards the end here, you may still have to finish him off, but use your God Hands and use the hand plant kicks to get in hits and eventually charge your God Hand meter back up again. And that's it. I mean, it's really not too hard if you have good supplies. But this last guy, I think they give you a full roulette meter and a full God Hand. So use double Shaolin immediately. It's a new move that you got. It's an upgraded version of Shaolin Blast. So just use the double Shaolin and then you're going to get good damage right off the beginning. And go into your God Hand. Use that. You're going to be backflipping a lot to dodge most of this stuff. And sometimes I'm going to actually use that bobbing and weaving dodge where you flick the right analog stick upward, which I rarely ever use in the game, but I found it useful for certain parts of this fight. When he spits the fireballs, I find it very useful to dodge like that. So yeah, whenever you get him in a pummel state, you should actually extract God Hand off of him, which I didn't do that time for whatever reason. You should get 2 God Hand extractions and then do the pummel. It's the best way to do it. But yeah, dodge that shit, and just counter it. It can be a very difficult fight because he summons demons as well, and he has an area of effect attack where he crushes the ground. which I dodge here, but I don't remember exactly how to do it. I think I roll back at the right time, but it can be very tricky to dodge. Like I said, my information on fighting this guy is going to be not too good because I haven't played this in 2 years and I don't remember exactly everything, but you want to keep relentlessly comboing him and dodging his moves, which you're going to just have to learn how to dodge, you know, his various moves. It's mostly backflipping at the right time, and for his fireballs, you're just going to do dodge and weave by mashing right analog stick up until he's done with the fireballs. And he's going to send out demons maybe at least twice during the fight, if not more. I guess it may depend, but at least twice during the fight, he's probably going to summon demons. So, luckily, they don't have the same amount of health as they would normally have when they appear regularly in the game, but they have much less health. And jump kicks actually seem to do a lot of damage to them and often launch them, doing huge damage. So, if you keep jump kicking them, eventually you will probably get rid of them. And I think they drop decent items sometimes too, so, pick up whatever they drop. That's the only item drops in this area is from the demons. So now we have 3 roulettes, so we're able to do another double Shaolin. So do that as soon as it's available, always. It does huge damage. I think it does more than a life bar of damage, but I'm not sure. But massive damage. So now you can charge up your God Hand bar. Again, if you want to charge it up fully, it's probably good to do that before using it. But now for these fireballs, actually he didn't do them that time, or I interrupted it. But yeah, so my God Hand meter, I guess it was full enough. I just decided that I didn't want to deal with that attack, I guess. And when you go into God Hand, you're invincible, so I just decided to use it there. So yeah, when he does these fireballs, you can stand in place and just mash up on the right analog stick, like I said, to do that bobbing and weaving dodge that I pretty much never use in the game. But I do think it's the best thing to use for that. Now, if you press circle at the right time, you can counter that move. But I don't remember exactly how I did it. I don't know if I had to be positioned exactly a certain way or how to make that prompt appear. But if you're ready for it, you can hit circle and get that in. I'm not sure if I planned for that. But yeah, use the up dodge for the fireballs, and then when he gets ready to flick you, roll back. Same with the when he pounds the ground with his fist. Eventually, you will get used to the timing, and it'll become pretty normal after a while. The problem with practicing him a lot is that your arms are going to go fucking numb most likely. So that's the hardest part, really, because it's a very long fight. So yeah, after I almost kill him, he unfortunately summons a second wave of harder demons. So, it did make the fight very close. It looks like if I would have got a little bit more damage, I may have been able to avoid the second wave. But I'm not sure if the game would let me do that. Probably. But so now we have to deal with these guys. So I recommend using jump kicks and just rolling back as usual. Just be aggressive with rolling back and then coming in for those running jump kicks. They can wipe you out fast. The demons are the most dangerous part of the fight. And he has a very dangerous area of effect attack where he slams the ground sometimes. I don't know if he may have tried to do it. It might have been the move that I countered, but like I said, I can't remember all the specifics. So yeah, after defeating these demons, you can just slap, in my case, I'm able to just slap the boss around a few more times to finish him off. He was almost dead. I missed about like 3 punches or something. So yeah. That's pretty much it. So if you have any questions about any techniques or anything about the game, let me know, and I'll tell you anything that I can remember. I always respond very quickly. So you see 999 continues, which means that I probably went well over 999 continues to beat the game. I'm guessing that's probably the max of the counter. So yeah, very hard fucking game, around, 34 hours at least. So 34 and a half hours, I think, is my final time when I totaled all my recorded footage, gameplay footage. Not including the casinos and all that shit. So probably closer to 40 hours. Thanks for watching.